And breaking news coming in after seizing the two Venezuelan-linked oil tankers, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said Venezuela wants oil from one of the seized tankers to be part of the deal. Rubio also said, we will control how money from sale of Venezuelan oil will be dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people. And U.S. Defense Secretary Hegseth said leverage from oil blockade continues. This is happening as we speak in a joint press conference by the Defense Secretary and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth. Listen in.
As you've seen today, 2 more ships were seized. We are in the midst right now and, in fact, about to execute on a deal to take all the oil. They have oil that is stuck in Venezuela. They can't move it because of our quarantine and because it's sanctioned. We are going to take between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. We're going to sell it in the marketplace at market rates, not at the discounts Venezuela was getting. That money will then be handled in such a way that we will control how it is dispersed in a way that benefits the Venezuelan people, not corruption, not the regime. So we have a lot of leverage to move on the stabilization front.
And my colleague Rohit Sharma joins me from Washington, D.C. for more on this. Big news coming in, big developments, Rohit, not one but 2 vessels. But certainly the one with the Russian flag is going to be a huge problem for Russia for sure. But they've already invoked UN Charter. So for the United States of America as well?
They have, and the fact is, I think this is where I think we're talking about. This is a very uncharted territory. We do not know how this is going to be. We saw a post from President Trump yesterday when he said U.S. would be selling oil, taking oil from Venezuela and selling it. Today, Marco Rubio doubling down on that, and I think it's going to be a diplomatic rift between the U.S. and Russia. Russia clearly upset, not happy. They want the tanker to be returned to the Russians. So we do not know how this is going to be. The U.S. is making the case that, look, these were docked in Venezuela. They were, going into or out of Venezuela. And because of the sanctions, U.S. can go ahead and take these tankers. So this is very, very different 2026 than we anticipated. Like the last week of December, we're talking about possibly a deal between Russia and Ukraine. But this is probably going to throw a wrench between how the U.S. and Russia talk and then what consequences it will have for the wider world.
Well, absolutely, because this is going to have huge ramifications. Now, we have to wait and see not just how Russia reacts to this, Rohit, but also how China reacts to it. I'm sure NATO countries, particularly Europe, on Greenland, are in a huddle. So will Russia and China be. And in that case, America will have to recalibrate how they're going to act against Venezuela when it comes to Russia and China.
Absolutely. You mentioned about Greenland. That's something. I mean, again, President Trump talking about it this morning and saying he's not sure if NATO will even come to defend America against China and Russia. And I think kind of indicating that the U.S. wants to go alone, solo, and deciding on what's best for the U.S. as America First policy, which we all know. So I think it is again, he's turned it upside down in 2026. First, going and capturing Maduro, and now this. So he's escalating things not only with adversaries, but also when talking about Greenland with people in NATO. So this is, again, very different than what people thought about. People were anticipating that there could be an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, something that President Trump wants. But I think by these actions, he's thrown another, set of variables into how things will turn out in the next few months. And remember, you talked about China, Geeta. President Trump is slated to go to China, probably like 8 or 9 weeks from now. So we'll have to wait and watch what unfolds between now and April.
Well, that's right, Rohit. When it comes to the discussions, the briefing that is taking place between or by Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio are spelling out some few very important details. But walk us through what happens next when it comes to these vessels. They have been apprehended. It is a Russian flag we're talking about, and the naval blockade continues. But he's made a very significant statement, Marco Rubio. He says that this fight is going to go to anywhere in the world where Venezuelan oil is reaching. That's significant.
And we all know, right? I mean, so the allegation essentially is that Venezuela was shipping this oil to Russia and Iran, and we're seeing what's going on in Iran as well, right? We've seen what statements have Iranians made about the U.S. A preemptive strike is what we've heard that they are willing to do. if, the U.S. does what it wants to do, and President Trump saying, he will act decisively in Iran. So I think that it's a larger case of, I think, how they're looking at things. Obviously, these three countries are on target, which means China, Russia, and Iran. But the fact that, Secretary Rubio said that we will be making a deal for the Venezuelan people, we'll be selling this oil at market price. So there is that business aspect to it, which President Trump talked about 2 days ago. Well, again, this is something we haven't seen U.S. act like. We've seen rogue states act like this. But I think President Trump clearly has something on his mind. He wants to make sure Western Hemisphere is secure. Venezuelan oil is sold at market price and at not low price. And the U.S. is willing to do whatever it can to ensure that it is able to achieve those goals.
Right. Rohit, thank you so much for joining us. But let's also listen into what Pete Hegseth had to say on the Venezuela situation.
2 oil tankers, 2 overnight, were seized by the United States of America, stateless or sanctioned, because the oil blockade, the quarantine of oil out of unsanctioned or stateless, sanctioned or stateless vessels continues. That leverage will continue. As Secretary Rubio outlined. So our military is prepared to continue this. As he said, the president, when he speaks, he means it.